Christian Ministries, where we're transforming all people into fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the New Covenant Christian Ministries Entrepreneurship Series. I'm Florena Oliver, and I have with me today
Steve.
Hello, Steve. And we're so glad that you guys have joined us to have another conversation about entrepreneurship the Christian way. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. We have been discussing over the last couple of sessions Jesus, the CEO, and we've been using a book by Lori Beth Jones of that same title. Now, the book has been in publication since 1992, so it may be a little hard to find a hardback copy, but you can go online and get an audio version of it if you're interested in following us along with us that way. And also, this is our third series. And for those of you who were not present for series 1 and 2, we recommend that you can go to the New Covenant Christian Ministry YouTube site, as well as as well as the church website, where you can access sessions 1 and 2. Because we're not going to review them today, but we're going to move forward with the next bit of information. But we encourage you to, if you're joining us for the first time, we encourage you to go back and look at sessions 1 and 2. But as always, in everything we do, we're going to start off with prayer. So, Steve, can you start us off with a prayer?
How can you have a Christian business talk without prayer first?
Absolutely.
So if everybody will bow their heads with us. Gracious Father, we just come before you today, humble, unashamed. Father, wanting to listen to your voice and hear your word concerning business, concerning how to do business, Father, concerning how to do it your way, Father, understanding that you are our main customer. Father, that everything that we do, we're doing it unto you. So, Father, take control, remove us, and allow your Holy Spirit to speak through us, Father, so that everyone that is listening to us, Father, all that will hear it later, Father, will get exactly what you want them to have concerning their business. It's in your Son, Jesus' name, that we pray. Amen.
Amen. So, Steve, I thought we'd start out with a couple of questions, because in the first 2 series, we asked people to submit questions, and we do have a few. So I'd like to start this one off with a question, if you don't mind.
I do not mind.
So the first question that we have is, what recommendation would you give a startup company on projecting sales financials for the first year or 2 of operation? And are there any web tools?
Great question for our first question. I would say if you are a startup and you're projecting sales, the first thing you need to understand is it's not going to be perfect. I think oftentimes when you're starting a new business and you're jumping out there for the first time, you have these expectations. And sometimes the expectations are so great that you stumble, and you stumble hard because you're trying to live up to this desire to do things the way that you saw somebody else do them.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
so I think it's important if you're starting up to understand it won't be perfect, but then also utilize tools that's available to you, like doing market research. You must do some market research when you're starting a business for the first time. And during your market research, you should show at least the first 12 months as a minimum of projected sales. Now, you may be sitting out there and saying, well, how can I figure out what my projected sales are? Listen, there are so many tools out there. If you go to the University of Google, you can find so many things. You can go to the SBA website, which is a
Very
great
good one. Yeah.
place to start. And you just put in your service that you're going to be providing, or if you have an actual unit that you're selling. So you've made something, go there and research it and find out what somebody else has done before you. Oftentimes, I think when we're getting out there, we don't look at it and say, you know what? I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody is driving down the road perfectly. I need to find that car. I need to find those wheels that's on that car, and I need to mimic what they're doing. And I can change up the flavor a little bit, but I don't need to create something brand new when it's already been done.
Yeah, I think what happens initially with a lot of startups is we want to make it easy to get into business, and it's not.
Absolutely.
It's not easy. You have to put in the work. You've got to do the research. You've got to question people. There's a theory that you should fail fast and often when you first start up. And what that means is you try something. If that didn't work, you try something else. Because that's just the nature of business. Everything you put out there is not going to work. I will tell you, like Steve said, there is the SBA also SCORE. Has quite a few tools that a startup business could use. And there's also one with Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo has a site called, I think it's Wells Fargo Works, or I may have it incorrectly. But they also have a tool that you can use. But the bottom line issue that Steve is saying, and I'm underlying, is you got to put in the work. It's not easy. There's no fast way to do it, but you just got to do the work.
You know, around the dinner table, every night when people go home, there's a meal. That meal doesn't just show up. Somebody has to plan that meal out. And when you're doing business, you have to have business planning. You have to take your time and plan that business. If you do not plan your business, then you're planning to fail.
Great point. Great point.
You have to take time out to do that research. And when you're starting, you may look out there and say, God, this is taking a long time. But nothing good comes easy. It takes time. And you have to have those principles of saying, I am going to do the right kind of business planning. And then you will hear me say this time and time again, research, 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 and research some more.
Yeah, when you said everything takes time, it brought me back to one of my favorite sayings, and it's one that Nelson Mandela said, is everything looks difficult until it's done.
Absolutely. That's a great saying by a great man.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the first question. So we hope that answered the question. And we have one other question before we get into today's topics, and that one is, how can I market my services better?
How can I market my services better? Before we go to that one, I want to add one more thing to the last one that we were talking about, is make sure when you're doing your projections to keep them reasonable. You know, oftentimes you have these just unbelievable projections in your business plan, and you go present that to the bank, and the bank is looking at you like, you must have did this before. And this is your first time. And then they want you to go back because you haven't thought it through. You must think these things through, because somebody else is going to be looking at your business plan and they want to know whether it's real or Memorex. They need to know that. And so you need to make sure that you have some reasonable projections. Now, do not misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying for a second that you don't have your BHAG, which is your big, hairy, audacious goal, a goal that nobody else will believe got done unless God did it. You want to always have that in your back pocket. But when you put that on your business plan, understand that somebody else is going to be looking at that, and they're going to judge you by what you have on there, whether it's reasonable or not.
Yeah, they want to make sure that you're not a risk, because no bank officer, no no investor they want to minimize their risk. It is a risk that they're supporting you in business, because business is a risk, but they want to minimize the risk. And that's what you have to show them in your research and your planning, is that I am a minimal risk that is going to do a return on your investment.
Absolutely. And they simply want to know, do you know what you're talking about? If you put it down there and it sounds crazy, they're going to think you're crazy. So the question at hand is, how can I market my services better?
Yeah.
And I'm going to start off by saying what I just said a few seconds ago. Research, research, research. And then tweak it until you can perfect your service or product. Mm-hmm. That's number 2. Number 3 is be unique. If a lot of people are doing the same thing, what is going to make you stand out from what everybody else is doing? And so you got to be able to tweak it and be unique. You know, I always say that you have to have a niche service. And in every business that you have, whether it's selling cars is not just selling any kind of car. To have a niche service, your niche service may be selling only late model Mercedes. That's a niche service, but you're still selling cars. And so you need to make sure that whatever business that you're getting into is that it's unique, that you put a unique spin on it. So when somebody else sees it, that they're attracted to it.
And what I want to add to that is, what I try to share is, ask yourself as a business owner, what problem do you solve? Because if you solve a problem for me, then I'm going to want your product or service. Oftentimes, business owners go into business and they hadn't thought about the problem they solved. All they thought about is, I want to go into business.
Oh, so you getting in there now. You done took some icing and put on a pound cake. We need to explore that a little bit. Once you have solved a problem and you become a subject expert in the problem that you have solved, then you're in a position to offer free advice. And once you offer free advice, then what you do is you get others to start talking about the service or product that you're giving. And so what you're doing in essence is you are marketing yourself, and you're getting that free advertisement by simply answering the question that somebody may have about your product or service.
And then that, as you said earlier, that person will market you. You don't have to worry so much about, well, how am I going to get the word out? Word of mouth is probably the best advertising you can have. Even in today's social media world, I am not the social media expert, nor do I want to be the social media expert. But when I look at social media and the impact it has on businesses, it's word of mouth.
Exactly.
Because I like you, I follow you, then my followers gonna follow them, and you'll follow. So it's still word of mouth advertising. But people follow people who are unique in social media. This is what I'm learning, or solve a particular problem. So if that's you, then make sure you're solving a problem. Even if you aren't a consumer-based business, what I call B2C, which is business to consumer. That's typically where you have a business where you sell to the consumer market. Even if you're what's called B2B, which is business to business, you still have to solve a problem that business has. Otherwise, they'll never use you.
Audience, you see how she's dropping it on you right now. She's dropping that, that wisdom on you. So you need to catch that B2C and B2B. Catch that. When you're trying to market yourself, it's also important for you to come up with a very unique slogan. Your slogan sells. I have a friend that he is a third generation tailor. So he does custom suits, custom clothes for men and women. And his catchphrase is, if you can put a needle through it, I can do it. Once you hear that, you remember it. And so you want to be memorable. Whenever you have your elevator pitch, and you have to get a good elevator pitch, because that may be the thing that causes you to either get a client or lose a client.
Now, you're talking about me dropping knowledge. You just brought in something called an elevator pitch. You want to, for those who may not know what an elevator pitch is, you want to share a little bit?
Well, I want you to think about going to an office, a high rise, and you get in that elevator and you're going up to the 20th floor. And somebody comes in that you have been drooling, you've been waiting, You've been wanting to meet this person, and now all of a sudden they're on that elevator with you. And it may be you and another person on the elevator, and you say good morning, and they say good morning back. And then you guys exchange pleasantries. And they say, well, what do you do for a living? You better be ready with that elevator pitch right then and there so that they can remember who you are, because that may be your only shot to get that particular person.
So you only have the amount of time that the elevator goes from one floor to the next to make that connection.
You only have that amount of time. And so I always say the people who work hard on the elevator pitch have more than one. Mm-hmm. You have a short elevator pitch, you have a longer one, and then you have one that might be a novel. And that's somebody that's on the plane, and you may be on there for a couple hours, and you don't have anything else to do. And so you might be able to tell your backstory. But most of the time with the elevator pitch, you're only going to have a limited amount of time for you to get out exactly what it is that you want to say. And so you want to make it unique, memorable. So somebody say, you know what? I don't even remember your name, but I remember what you do.
And those unique amount of time that you're talking about, Steve, for an elevator pitch is usually either a 10-second elevator pitch, a 30-second elevator pitch, or a 60-second elevator pitch.
Yes, and it should include your name. You should always state your business name and exactly what it is that you do. You don't want to confuse anybody, so whatever business that you're in, you want to make sure in your elevator pitch that you say that you say very specifically, this is what I do. And you want to be memorable. Like I heard one elevator pitch that says, all you need is grass and we'll take care of the rest.
Oh, I've heard that too.
Yeah. And then the comeback is, and if you don't have grass, we can bring that too. You want to have something that somebody's going to hear and they're going to remember that. And they're going to think about it. When they get home and they have grass, they're going to say, you know what? I just met somebody that said all you need is grass and I got grass and it's bad. I need to call that person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So hopefully that answered the first two questions. The first one was what do you recommend to a startup company to project? And the other one was how can I market my services better? We have a couple of other questions. I'm sorry.
Yes, I was going to ask you a question. Since
you're
doing the question asking,
okay,
I just want to jump into
All
it
right,
as well.
Ask me a
Don't
question.
leave me out in the cold.
Ask
okay?
me a question.
I like coats too. I don't want to be cold. So I have a question for you. This question just came in. I just heard it. It was in my earpiece that fell out. It says, when setting up an LLC business structure, what are the best practices regarding tax obligations?
Wow, that's a deep one. The best thing that I can say about that particular question is the statement that I usually share with business owners that I talk to all the time. And I say to them, the first two employees of your business should be your lawyer and your accountant. Because this is a type of question that you would pose to those two individuals. Because there are many, many business structures, as you well know, from S Corp, C Corp, LLC, LLP,
Sole
proprietorship, and all of them are set up for tax purposes. So you need to talk with someone who is an expert in that, an attorney or an accountant, to help you make the decision as which one is better for you. Now, most people now form LLCs only because that's the quick one you can do. It doesn't take a lot of documentation. So that's the one most people go to, but you need to make sure that the LLC is the right one for the type of business that you're starting. So my recommendation to whomever it was that asked that question is seek advice from your attorney or your accountant as to which business structure is best for you based on your product or service.
Yes, and figure out how you want to get paid, because that's important. Everyone that goes into business, most people are going into business because they want to make money. Right? They want their life to be better. And you need to know that the money that comes to you don't always belong to you. And if you do not understand the tax implications of the structure that you set up, you can get in trouble, because there are three people that you do not want to make mad in business. And they all start with one letter, the I, the R, and the S. You do not want to make them mad. So it'll be very important for you to figure out that business structure by talking to that tax attorney, from the jump street.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have one more question before we jump in. And that is, what steps should I implement when trying to get clients for my business? Where do I start?
You can start in a number of different places. And really, every business and every person is going to be different. The first thing that you want to do, the simplest thing that you can do, is ask for referrals. Now, when you ask for referrals, you have to understand when you ask a particular person to refer you, they're going based solely on your character. So that means that you have to build good character with people before you ask them for referrals. And then you want to build a network. That's the second thing you need to do, is build a network. You need to get out and start talking to people. And you can't be selfish with it. A lot of people that are starting businesses, the only thing they're thinking about is their business. They're thinking about how they can make money. But if you started off with a different mentality of how can I give to somebody else, it's going to make it easier for you to then receive the very thing that you want, which are clients. The third thing you need to do is think about how you offer discounts and incentives to new customers. You know, how are you going to, it's one of the things that you hear about a lot of times is customer acquisition. How are you going to acquire that customer, and what is it going to cost you to acquire the customer? If you're using online platforms, it may cost you a price to acquire a customer. And so you need to figure that out from the jump street, from the beginning of how you're going to acquire the customer.
So now you're dropping another nugget there. You're dropping what's called a COG, cost of acquisition.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's just wisdom just flowing up here. I'm going to have to move somewhere else because you may be a little ahead of my time here.
But that's a very important part of being in business. If you don't know how much a customer costs you and how much it costs to acquire that customer, you will never be able to determine what your bottom line profit is. Yes. Because a lot of times people go into business and say, oh, I can go over here and buy this for this, and I'm going to put a 10% markup on it, and wow, I'm making money. Well, are you really? Have you looked at all the other elements, which is your rent, your telephone, your internet? All of those things go into the cost of a customer, not just the cost of the raw materials that you use to service that product or service. Some
real good stuff. So I'm going to run through these last ones so we can get to the meat of our lesson today. If this is not the first time that you started a specific business, we understand that sometimes people have a business and they stop for whatever reason, they start up. So if you're restarting a business, recontact your old customers. If you did a good job, contact them again and say, hey, I'm back in business again. I'm sure if you did good work, they'll want to do business with you again. And then if you have a website, always improve on things. If you have a website, don't ever think that the thing that you start with has to be the end. You can always improve it. And so go back and send out feelers to people. One of the things I like is in the network group, one of the things they talk about is how they send out feelers to other people and say, do you like this website? Do you like this logo? And they get people feedback. And that is important. That's free feedback that you don't have to pay for. The next one is you want to partner with other businesses that may be like yours. You can learn a lot by being humble and by working with others. That is such an easy statement for me to say that. It's so hard for us to do sometimes.
But it's so powerful. It's so powerful if you actually act upon that. Because you can't do business by yourself. No matter how hard you try, no matter how diligent you are, no matter how hard you may work, because there's an old saying that most business owners, they work in the business instead of on the business. And when you start up, you work in the business. You're the chief cook and bottle washer. You do everything. But your goal should be that I'm going to develop this business where I'm no longer working in the business, but working on the business.
See, now you coming straight out of the E-Myth. Michael Gerber. If you're listening out there, go pick that book up. That's a book I recommend to everybody I come in contact with that says I want to be in business. I say before we even talk, you need to read that book. And then we can talk after that. The next one you want to do is be able to promote your expertise. That's why it is important to always be improving, because you can't be an expert at anything if you're not improving on that thing that you're trying to do. And so when you become an expertise at that thing, you can market your business better. And then you want to use online reviews. If you're heavy into
those are
social media and
powerful, yeah.
online,
Yeah,
look at
those
those
real
online
powerful.
reviews, and don't get upset if somebody put something negative online about you. Figure out. You may want to reach back out to them in an email and say, what can I do better the next time? People really appreciate the fact when you are honest enough to say, I made a mistake and I know I can do better. Will you give me an opportunity to do it again?
And that goes back to the point that no one is perfect. So there will be times, and you need to plan for this in your business, there will be times when you will have unsatisfied customers.
Absolutely.
So as you're developing your business plan, you need to also talk about, well, what will we do when we have an unsatisfied customer? That's a very, very important part of being able to be successful, because you will have unsatisfied customers.
That's church. You preaching the gospel. And those are some of the things that you can do with your business. And we can keep on going on and on and on, but I know we need to get to the next part.
Yeah, we need to get into the book, but we wanted to definitely answer your questions, and we encourage you, because we do have a few more sessions that we'll be doing. We encourage you to send questions to us. You can do that by going to any of New Covenant Christian Ministries social media sites, Walk with New Cov, or you can send it via the church website. But we'll be happy to answer any of your business questions if you submit them, right?
Yes, there's one thing that I missed out on, and that should have been the very first thing I said, is you need to identify your ideal customer. You need to know what your customer looks like. How can you market to a customer that you don't know who that customer is? And so find out exactly what that customer looks like, and then it'll be easier for you to find that particular customer.
And many of the things that Steve and I are sharing with you today, you can find, as Steve liked to say, on Google University. And they're also, again, going back to the other websites we mentioned earlier, SBA Score. Any of those sites you may find very useful as you're trying to develop your business.
I think it was one more question that we will finish up this part of the questions. Somebody asked this question: where do I start?
Where do I start? I think the best thing to say about where you start is with family and friends. There's a theory called the lean startup, and I forgot the gentleman's name right now who coined that theory, but he believes that you need to start with family and friends. Test your idea, test your product or service with family and friends, because those are the ones who are going to give you some very honest feedback. And you have to be prepared to take that honest feedback. And one of the people I want you to think about as you prepare to start up and get that feedback is Michael Jordan. There's a story about how many times Michael Jordan would be out there just practicing his free throw. I think I heard some crazy number like 3,000 times each hour he would be out there, just practicing and practicing, because he was trying to perfect what he became famous for. Thomas Edison, for example, the person that created all these lights that were in here, there's a story that says he failed 10,000 times before he created the light bulb. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to hear feedback that may be different from what you were expecting, because take that feedback as a little bit of a cloak that's going to make you be better and better till you have that beautiful coat of colors like Joseph.
Yeah, just one more suggestion. If you're using family and friends, don't do it around the holidays, because you do want to get a plate just in case you mess up. So, but seriously, where you want to start, right where you are. No time like the present.
Do business. It's like we like to say around here. You got to do it. Do business. So we're going to now, after we conclude these questions, we're going to kind of go into the next section of the book. And for those who are joining us for the first time, Lori Beth Jones in her book divided Christ as a CEO into three main principles. The first one is Jesus practiced self-mastery, and that's what we talked about in the first two series. The other one is Jesus practiced strength of action. And the other one is Jesus practiced strength of relationship. So today we're going to begin talking about Jesus' strength of action. And so one of the first things that Lori talks about in the book, Jesus CEO, is that Jesus saw everything as if it was alive, that it was full of possibilities.
That's a mouthful right there.
It is, isn't it?
Full of possibilities. If you have faith, even the mountains will obey. And that's how Jesus saw it. And so if you're watching this right now, I have a question for you. What situations in your life have you written off as dead? We have so many dreams on the inside of us that we're afraid, and we allow fear to make them dead to us. But I want you right now, those who are listening, you have that entrepreneurial spirit. You know that you've tried to shake it time and time again, but it keeps coming back up. It keeps coming back up because that is who you are supposed to be. You need to revive that. The only thing is dead is a thing that you put in the grave and you put dirt over it, you close the casket up, and you put a headstone on it, and you walk away from it. If it's not, jump out there on top of that casket and revive it and bring it back to life and start all over. It is okay that it failed the first time, second, third, or fourth time. It is not over until you put a period there. Drop that comma and keep it moving.
Because here's the thing I like about being an entrepreneur is your first idea may fail, as mine did, but my second one took off, and my third one took off, and I'm working on a fourth one because I am full of possibilities, and it's not something that I just wake up and say, but it's the entrepreneurial spirit that's in me, because to be an entrepreneur, you gotta be willing to fall. And as long as I fall on my back, I can get up because you will fall. But you got to remember that, okay, I can do this. This is possible. And that's what Jesus thought. And that was part of his strength of action, as he saw everything as being alive, full of possibilities.
Yes, and in doing that, you're going to always have those naysayers, those people that you tell, I have this dream, or I have this desire to step out there and do something different. I have this desire to be out there on my own and doing business. And they will try to talk you out of your dream. They will give you so much negativity. But I want you guys to hear this statement clearly. Now, it's not even going to cost you anything. This is a free one. Okay. Normally, when I drop knowledge like this, I want to send an invoice.
And you
but I'm
pass
not
the
going to send it
basket.
this time.
I
I'll
get it.
pass that basket. But negativity is just energy yearning to be set free. You take that negative energy that somebody is giving you, you set that thing free, and you get out there and you make it happen. And all along the way, you use that as positive energy for your growth and for you to take that business to that next level, from birth to it crawling, to it walking, to it graduating high school, to it graduating college, getting its MBA and getting its doctorate. You take that thing all the way to the rooter to the tutor.
I would drop the mic, but I don't think my audio people would like that.
We would have to pay for those mics, and then we really would have to send out some invoices because they are really expensive.
Yeah. So that first point from the strength of action in Jesus CEO is everything is alive. Now, the second one is he took action, do business. He did more than what was written about.
Yes.
More than what was written about. Those of you who are Bible scholars, you know there's a lot in that book.
We got the Cliff Notes.
But Jesus did more than what was written about.
He did a lot of things because he just did it. He didn't wait for somebody. He didn't watch the news. He made the news. Mm-hmm. And when you have that kind of mindset that I'm just going to get in here and do it, when we're starting businesses, the first thing we're thinking about is who's going to help us. And if those people that we think are going to help us don't come on board, then we just decide that, well, maybe it wasn't meant for us to do it. But you cannot wait for others. You got to get out there and just do it. And those people that God has for you to come on your side, they will come. It may take time, but you're not going to get anything done if you just sit back and wait for somebody to grab your hand, pull you out the bed, and get you started.
That's what I like about one of the phrases that are often used here at New Covenant is do business. That was one of the first things that I heard our pastor, Pastor Bill, say that struck me, is, we were having a prayer and all of these, it amazed me the number of entrepreneurs that came and filled this altar where we are today. And his final word to us after praying over us was, do business.
And that was very powerful and impactful because somebody heard that, do business. And they went out and they actually had a do business conference. Shortly after that, hearing those two words, do business. Doing business is about taking action. It's not about sitting back. It's about getting that word and listening to that word and believing that word and having the faith that you can step out there and get that thing done. You may not have everything that's necessary, but when this young lady heard those two words, do business, she made a couple of phone calls, and before you know it, she had donations. She had people paying for things, donating the building. She had everything going on, even had a celebrity to come and be the main speaker at that particular conference. And I'm telling you that those words are powerful. And when you hear them, listen to me right now. You're out there right now sitting on your couch, and you're right there on the edge of your seat. Jump up off the edge of your seat and say, do business. Look in the mirror and say, I'm going to do business, and go do business. Stop playing games.
That's it right there. So we've got everything is alive. We got he took action. And this is the last one we're going to talk about today, in that one is he had a plan. A good idea is worth $1, but the plan for that idea is worth $1 million.
Yeah, you cannot get caught up in the hammering, thinking just because you're hearing the hammering going on that a building is being built. Sometimes the hammering is just outside noise. And so you have to understand that if you have that idea and you do nothing with it, you might as well have a penny. But if you take that idea and you do business with it, that could be $1 million. It can be $1 billion. There are countless number of people that had an idea and they didn't sit on that idea. They got up and they did something about it. Are you going to be the person with a penny? Or are you going to be the person with $1 billion?
But, going back to that hammering, it said that everybody likes the sound of hammering, but we are uncomfortable with the sound of silence. That's when we really start sitting down and hammering out that plan. And I wanted to have everyone, if you just take a moment and write down the word silent, silent. And if you look at that, if you turn the letters around, silent means listen. Sometimes you've got to listen to the Holy Spirit and what God is leading you to do for that business. But he's not going to just let that come in your mind. You got to sit down. You got to write that thing down. His word says, write the vision, make it plain.
Make it plain.
Make it plain. So I think we're about out of time for today, Steve. And I want everyone to kind of do this little summary of what we talked about today. Some of the main points that we talked about. We answered some of the questions in the very beginning about how to make projections, what tools that are out there. And then we went into the second of the 3 points from Lori Beth Jones' book, Jesus CEO, when we started talking about strength of action. Now, there are some other points that we're going to follow up in our next series. But Are there some last remarks you want to give to everyone, Steve, before we close this session out?
I have 2 words for everybody that's sitting out there watching this. Do business.
Do business, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll be back again with more of the NCCM Entrepreneurship Series.